Shakespeare in the Bible, then. Before we start, I'd like you to think about the Bible and what it meant to people in those days. Here is a book that was published just a few years ago in 2013 by a man called Hannibal Hamlin, great name. He's trying to get us to imagine what it would be like in those days. He says, imagine a television program that everybody in the country's been watching every week, sometimes more than once, for their entire lives. And they've seen some episodes of it dozens of times. Suppose your parents and your grandparents all watch the same episodes, and millions of people in other countries nearby, they had also watched these episodes too, dubbed into their own languages, okay? So that they would, in Germany, in France, all around Europe, they'd also be watching the same television program. Suppose people had been watching this show in even different languages for more than 1,000 years. In Latin, in Greek, in different languages. Suppose there were big libraries that were, full of books about how to understand this TV show. Suppose that it was illegal not to watch the show. You have to watch the show. Okay, you can't not watch this show. All right, you have to. And that you, not just that, but your eternal salvation, when you die, your life after death depends on this show. You have to give top importance to this show. Suppose this TV show was the basis for the literature and the art and the politics and the history and the philosophy of your country. Suppose this show was basic to how we understood the natural world, human nature, and pretty much everything. Well, that was the Bible in the 16th and 17th century. It was like the television show that never stops, that you have to watch, and that everybody is kind of caught up in. All right? If you can think about it like that, then you've got some idea of what the Bible was for people in those days. Okay? All right? It was just the ongoing thing that was happening all the time, and you couldn't escape. It was just the ongoing show. And when you went to the library, well, it was just like this. Okay? You have Bibles, more Bibles, books about the Bible, more Bibles, and right down in the corner you might have a bit of other stuff. Okay? It dominated the culture in a way that's very difficult to understand for us today. Okay? It was central, huge importance. So when we come to Shakespeare, well, of course, like everybody else, Shakespeare knew the Bible, and he knew that his readers would know it. That's a starting point for any discussion in those days about philosophy or morality or anything really. The Bible was the starting point. So it isn't really surprising that Shakespeare talks about the Bible maybe as much as 2,000 times in his writings. It's not surprising, although he is perhaps more indebted to the Bible. He uses the Bible more often than most other writers of his period. He uses the Bible thousands of times in his writings. So here in Japan, where a lot of people don't know the Bible, how are you going to know Shakespeare? If you don't know the Bible, you can't really know Shakespeare. Okay? So studying Shakespeare should really be connected with studying the Bible, if you're going to understand it properly. Which version of the Bible? The famous version of the Bible that was made at this time was the King James Bible, which was at the beginning of the 17th century. I'm going to use the Geneva Bible, which was a 16th century translation of the Bible. That's because the Geneva Bible is the one that Shakespeare uses. All right? We can see he uses the words from the Geneva Bible. So that's another thing. it is a Protestant Bible. He doesn't use a Catholic Bible. He uses a Protestant translation. Okay, so that's another thing against the idea that he might be a Catholic. He uses the Geneva Bible. So let's take a look at some examples out of this 2000. Let's look at, for example, Shakespeare's comedy Measure for Measure. Well, look at the title, Measure for Measure. And then look at, from the Bible, for with what judgment ye judge, you shall be, ye just means you. With what judgment you judge, you shall be judged. With what measure ye mete, with what measure you give out, it shall be measured unto you again. So you get back what you put in. Okay, you judge other people strictly, you will be judged strictly. Okay, measure for measure. That is the title of the play, comes from the Bible, and the whole topic of the play. How strictly should we judge other people? What rights do we have to judge other people? The topic of the play is exactly on this theme. So the whole play is based on a biblical idea. You've got Isabella, and her brother Claudio is condemned to be put to death. And so she talks about the biblical teaching of Christ dying to save mankind. And she says, why? All the souls that there were forfeit once. Everybody had to go to hell until Jesus came along and saved us. All the souls of everybody, all of humanity, had to go to hell. But Jesus came and saved us. Okay? So it's exactly the teaching from the Bible. And it's the Protestant teaching particularly. How would you be if he, which is the top of judgment, should but judge you as you are? You cannot be judged as you are. If we are all judged as we are, we all go to hell. Because we're human. We're not perfect. The only way that we can be saved, according to Protestant thinking, this is not just the Bible, but Protestant understanding of the Bible, the only way we can be saved is by believing that Jesus, okay, if I think of it like this, okay? This is my cup of perfection. John Wilson's cup of perfection. John Wilson's cup of perfection only comes up to here. Okay? It's not enough to get him into heaven. Okay? And everybody, according to the Bible, is like that. The only thing that will save them is Jesus adds his part. And if you believe that Jesus has added his part, so that, oh, I've got Jesus now, I can go to heaven. Okay? My cup is full. I'm perfect. Right? I'm not perfect, but because Jesus makes me perfect. Okay? That's the Protestant understanding. And it's the understanding from the Bible. And that's what Measure for Measure, this play by Shakespeare, that's what it's all about. Okay? It's based on biblical teaching. So this idea that humans are worthless, we get it again in another play, we get it in Hamlet. Hamlet says, use every man after his desert, and who shall escape whipping? Dessert here does not mean sabako or pudding. It means what you deserve. Treat everybody as they deserve, and we'll all get whipped. Okay? Because we all have something wrong with us. So you get this idea in Hamlet, which comes on to the idea of predestination in Hamlet, that our destiny has already been chosen. We can't choose for ourselves. All we can do is be ready. Prepare for our umme. Because mo kimiteru kara. Again, Protestant thinking. All right, so even if we find these Catholic ideas in Shakespeare, we find a lot of Protestant ideas as well. And he says, if it be now, it's not to come. If it be not to come, it will be now. If it be not now, yet it will come. The readiness is all. The important thing is to be ready at any time to die and meet your fate. Okay, so he puts across the Protestant thinking, but it's based on the teaching of the Bible. So humanity is saved because of the mercy of God, and that's connected with something called providentialism. Is a kind of technical word for in religion. It just means I believe that God is looking after me. Okay, right now, God is looking at, God is watching me, He's watching all of you, He's watching everything that happens in this world. この世界、何でも小さなことでも神様は守ってる。That's providentialism, the idea that God's watching everything all the time. Okay? And again, we get the same idea coming into the Bible. You know the sparrow. Suzume, is it? I can't remember. So, a little bird. You often see it flying around. It's a little bird. Anyway, are not two sparrows sold for a farthing, and one of them shall not fall to the ground without your Father, without God? God, even those little birds, God is protecting them. God, and if one of them falls down and dies, that's because God said it could happen. Everything that happens is because God allows it to happen. So, again, in Hamlet, there's a special providence in the fall of a sparrow. Okay? He obviously knows his Bible very well, and he expects his readers to know, and his audience to know the Bible very well.